Yep, we're here. It's literal time for the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You can't make this up. I mean, you could, but I mean, what? Oh boy. So, at some point today, throughout the streets of London, 2 of the king's stallions were rampaging through the pedestrian population, trampling their rights and freedoms as they have for hundreds, if not thousands of years. As you can see here, a white horse, bloodied from the neck down, accompanied by a black fellow. Both of these, if you're a scholar of Christian eschatology, might represent the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The white representing conquest and the black fellow representing famine, pestilence, and disease. Are the illuminated ones trying to tell us something? Or is this just a coincidence? What is your interpretation, my friends? We need to talk about more pressing matters, and I don't think I can maintain this English accent convincingly for much longer. So let's carry on. I can't believe that shit actually happened. This is where we're at. Bloody white horses rampaging through the streets of London. Oh boy. Okay, so here's what's going on today. A nuclear exercise simulating full-blown nuclear conflict with Russia and China just took place a few days ago, and nobody was informed of it. Now, there was a lot of emergency action messages at the time that had some people going full-blown Orson Welles and saying that the end of the world was imminent. Quite frankly, I don't blame them, because if the end of the world ever was going to happen, it's going to happen during one of these massive strategic exercises. Now, this just so happened to correspond, almost overlap, I should say, the Israeli attack on the Iranian nuclear facility. Now, what was that attack all about? One camp says that it was just a low-level attack on Iranian radar systems. Another camp, the Pepe Escobar camp, the independent, respected, credible journalist who's not going to put his reputation on the line for some bullshit, I would think, claims that the F-35 actually, one of the F-35s that was involved in the mission, was carrying a nuclear weapon and was potentially going to detonate or have that nuclear weapon detonate at a moderate altitude over Iranian airspace, which would induce an electromagnetic pulse which would render the power grid throughout most of Iran inoperable. Now, fortunately, that didn't happen, and it's not World War III full-blown yet. It is World War III. It's a Mexican standoff. It's a bunch of guys who hate each other. They just haven't started firing the big guns yet. But you know it's approaching that inevitable conclusion at a rapid speed. Now, this strategic exercise, why this is so important is because we need to remember, and I need to keep on beating this dead horse. Enough of horses today. I'm sorry. They're never going to tell us when the shit is going down. I mean, that's their policy. Continuity of government dictates that they're not going to tell us if it's going down. So when we start seeing these emergency action messages going haywire, it's most likely just an exercise. But if the real deal was to happen, that is the noise, that is the chatter and encrypted messaging that we would hear over the airwaves. So it is important that we don't just dismiss it as a nothing burger. Now, for me, I don't pay attention to it because it's like watching flight radar. It's virtually pointless. You're not going to be able to make anything of it, except that the quantity of the messages might increase, might indicate, okay, it's time to get that bug out bag and make sure, do an inventory, make sure it's ready at the door, because the shit could be going down. So, why all of the hoopla around the nuclear exercises right now? Why is this so important right now? Because these nuclear exercises happen all the time. Well, here's what's going to be happening in the next couple weeks. You are going to have Quadriga 2024, which is one of the biggest of these Steadfast Defender military exercises, going to be taking place in the next couple weeks. Paired with that, you just had Ukraine get these Icbms long-range missiles. That was done in secret. Now, as you would expect, people are making a big deal about the U.S. sending these 300-kilometer range Icbms missiles to Ukraine when they've been talking and debating about whether or not they should do it over the last 2 years because they were worried that this would push the Russians too far, and that the Russians, that would be a red line, because of course this is going to enable the Ukrainians to target the Crimean Bridge, which is exactly what they say they're going to do before May 9th, which is Russian Victory Day. Now, that is going to coincide. The attack on the Crimean Bridge, I think, is likely in the next couple weeks. I think that is going to coincide with the peak of the Quadriga and Steadfast Defender 2024 exercises. Right around the same time, you're going to have the F-16s enter the conflict zone against the backdrop of all of this strategic activity and the delineation between East and West. What they're trying to push right now, I had my source in Poland today send me a message which basically summarizes it very nicely. What they're trying to do, Rishi Sunak, Donald Tusk, the president of Poland, and who was the other one? Was it Jens Stoltenberg? No, it was Jens Stoltenberg. They met at a trilateral summit in Warsaw, and what they're trying to frame China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea as, they're trying to create a situation where they're referring to all conflicts as one conflict. So they're trying to say that the North Korean conflict, the Taiwanese conflict, the Ukrainian conflict, and the Middle Eastern conflict between Iran and Israel are all one thing. And they're trying to treat it as such, to enter this bipolar Cold War between East and West. So this is what they're using to rally their defense industries, and now they're going full-blown war economy. This was stated by Rishi Sunak and Emmanuel Macron. They are putting their economy into a war footing, increasing their spending up to 2.5%, which in the grand scheme of things isn't really a war economy, but it's a lot more of a war economy than it was before. They're getting prepared for full-blown war with the Russians. Now, why this exercise is so significant? Remember, they're never going to tell us it's going to go down. They have 44 interceptor missiles. This is from Annie Jacobson's nuclear war book. 44 interceptor missiles to intercept the 2,000, this is not counting however many ICBMs China would throw at us. 44. Now, the accuracy of these interceptor missiles, these anti-ballistic missiles, is in the best of times maybe 50%. Realistically, with a Sarmat, you're not getting that thing. Plus, there's going to be all kinds of decoys. So not only are the Russians going to throw up thousands of nukes, they're going to throw up thousands of decoys. So this is why they're not telling anybody, because they know it's hopeless, okay? They know it's hopeless for people in North America. The best thing you can do is to get yourself away from ground zero, away from the military bases, the places of strategic significance. We've done plenty of videos on that before, and I'm not saying you got to pack up your bags and do this. I'm just talking, make this your long-term goal, because nobody's going to recklessly pack up their life in a day, but just make it a goal to maybe strategically relocate, okay? That's probably a wise decision at this point in time. I'm not saying doing anything rash. I'm just saying make a calculated and methodical decision to position yourself strategically away from major military bases, away from strategic military bases, nuclear Minuteman missile silo sites, nuclear power plants, and probably major urban centers. If you can do that, that's the best you can ask for at this point in time, because these kind of things increase the likelihood of an accident happening. And accidents can very well happen, because what we got going on right now, as I indicated, this is the Director General of the German military. Here's what he has to say. We are deploying from the entire NATO area, also from North America, to the eastern flank. 90,000 soldiers. All NATO member states are involved. This is in the next couple weeks, guys. Germany is going all in on NATO's planning. This is different from what we have done at or as in the past. Repeatedly carved out contingents for the international crises management and deployed them. This is terrible captions. Now, makes you think the big qualitative difference, and they're talking about military Schengen, so Germany is going to be kind of the crossroads for all this military movement. He's saying in the next couple weeks, They're going to be a logistical hub, and you're going to see a lot of military equipment moving through Germany. So he's trying to not spook the population. Now, we know that Poland wants nuclear weapons. We know Belarus has reiterated today that they're only going to use their nuclear weapons if given the green light from Russia. So we know, predictably, that Poland will get nuclear weapons at some point in time to match the movement of nukes into Belarus. And now you have the Germans mobilizing their military. Everybody is getting weaponized. They're talking about, yeah, there's probably going to be a conflict with the Russians in 5 to 8 years. I don't see how we have 5 to 8 years. If we do, I am grateful. But it's very likely, here's what's going to go down, okay? So this is the ISR activity of the American and NATO militaries right now in and around the Black Sea. So you can see you have Boeing P-8A Poseidon planes surveilling this part of the Black Sea. You have a Northrop Grumman RQ-4B Global Hawk surveying that part of the Black Sea. And you also have Fort 12 over here. Actually, this is the RQ-4B Global Hawk. And then you have the Boeing KC-135 Stratotanker as well. Now, this is getting uncomfortably close to Sochi, because what the Ukrainians are going to do with these Icbms, I would suspect, was start firing them at the Crimean Bridge. That is the Pyrrhic victory they need to boost morale right now. If they can neutralize the Crimean Bridge with their hundreds of Storm Shadows and Icbms missiles, or just use that as a diversion so they can wipe out some military bases in Sevastopol or Crimea, then that will be considered a victory for the Ukrainians. Now, when they do that, the Russian Pravda news organization has said that they're going to start shooting these planes down. Up until this time, Russia has been incredibly tolerant. Look at how close Sochi is right here. And this is how close the U.S. military plane that is coordinating attacks inside what Russia considers to be Russia, okay, coordinating those attacks, and they're allowing it to happen. These guys have 2,000 nuclear ICBMs at the ready, far more than we have at the ready, and they have new S-400 interceptors that do, or will likely, I should say, they have more of them. They have way more anti-ballistic missiles than we do. I can't remember the exact number, but when Peter Pry was on the channel and he was still alive, rest in peace, my friend, he talked about the discrepancy in anti-ballistic missiles, but it's vast, okay? And this is not to say they're going to shoot down all of our weapons, or any for that matter. It just means that they have a better chance. They have the S-400 systems. But this is how close. This is how close we're, like that little kid who's pointing the finger saying, I'm not touching you. That's where we're at right now. If they take that bridge down, these drones, possibly these planes, are getting shot down. Mark my words. And then the United States is going to be like, oh, how could they? They're going to be all full-on Karen about it. But just remember, we probably had it coming, okay? Because Pentagon confirms a secret transfer of Icbms to Ukraine. Now the question is, of course it's a secret. I mean, why shouldn't it be a secret? Why do they keep telling the Russians what they're sending over there? It's probably because they're scared of nuclear Armageddon. And they just want to make sure that they're within the range of acceptable conventional military capability that they're offering Ukraine, and they're not overstepping their boundaries. I don't see any other reason why they would ever tell the Russians, because now the Russians are going to be on alert for this, right? So it just makes no sense. It's almost as if they're just trying to fuel the military-industrial complex. Maybe that's what it is. I wonder if that's what it is. Now, recently, you'll probably recall, this is a classic example of a cameraman doing a terrible job. This guy had one job, all right? Anyways, this is one of the many oil depots inside Russia that has been struck in the last 24 hours. They just told Ukraine, look, we're going to give you the money. Don't strike the oil refineries. If you ramp up the price of oil, the banks are going to crash, and we're not going to have any more money to give you. What do the Ukrainians do? They target the oil refineries once again. So here we go. here we go. They continue to do it. Of course, they're using drones. They claim they're not using Icbms. Of course, the drones are using American GPS, right? So, and probably Starlink. So these drones are being guided to their destinations with the help of American technology. And eventually, while this has already forced the Russians to strike deals to import gasoline from, where was it again? Kazakhstan, I believe. So this situation is escalating. The Ukrainians apparently have gone rogue, much like the Israelis, and they're doing whatever they want. They've also attacked a metallurgical plant, one that is used for military purposes, and they even struck a place near Moscow, I do believe, inside Moscow. You know, like a few, I don't know, like how long ago? Maybe a few months ago, I would have reported on something like this as being a big deal. That there was a massive fire in Moscow that was likely caused, look at that traffic jam there in that direction, holy shit. You know, caused by what could have been sabotage or Ukrainian drone. Now we don't even talk about it because this is just the new baseline. This is the new normal. Thank God the Russians are so tolerant of us, because we very well could already be in a radiated hellscape, but we're not. Okay, so that's what's going on the Ukrainian front. You know, the Icbms are going to trigger a major war between Nato and Russia, and you know how the story goes from there. I talked about UK and France, Rishi Sunak and Emmanuel Macron putting their economies on a full-blown war footing. That's only going to ramp up. We have Russia moving tactical nuclear weapons closer to the Finnish border. And Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova told the RIA State News Agency that the drills that are currently a part of the Steadfast Defender in that neck of the woods in Finland are provocative, and that they raise the risk of a possible military incident. Is that foreshadowing? I don't know. Now, Iran has doubled down on its nuclear threats. Lots of protests going on today. You know, Netanyahu is currently under house arrest from all these protesters who are beating down his door to get out of office. If the Israelis were wise, they might consider replacing him at this point in time, just to cool their own population down so they can do their part to fatten the pockets of the military-industrial complex. I just had a call coming in there. Interrupted my flow. Damn you. Anyways, so this is what's going on. You have protests going on in the States who are pro-Palestinian, and you have protests going on in Israel that are anti-Israeli government. Maybe these two people, at some point in time, will just get together and realize, you know what? We got to work this out, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think World War III is baked into the cake at this point in time, because Iran has now said not only could they do a nuclear test in a week, okay, if they needed to, a nuclear test, which means that they could build it in a week and test it if they wanted to. They also claim that within a week's time, they could have 12,000 kilometer range delivery systems. Iran does not currently have a missile that can fire that far. You know who does have that missile? The Russians, the Chinese, and the North Koreans. And coincidentally, a North Korean delegation made its way to Iran today to meet with their leaders to discuss different types of economic partnerships. Could it be that the Iranians are now under the nuclear umbrella, certainly of China, because China is going to rely on Iranian oil? And I think if you believe the Pepe Escobar narrative, in which he says that an F-35 was sent over Iran but neutralized by some of the Axis forces, or it just decided to just chickened out at the last minute and they were going to detonate a nuke, I think China would have had a role in this, because China is the one who stands to lose most if the Iranians were to get into a war with the Israelis, because that would raise the price of oil. Don't get me wrong, it would be bad for the United States as well, but the United States still can sustain itself on its own reserves. The Chinese cannot. They are importers of oil. So if the price were to go up in the United States, You know, they could potentially nationalize oil. That would kill the petrodollar, of course, but, you know, all par for the course of the Great Reset, as they say. This is what's going down. So it really does start to look like the Iranians already have or will be getting nukes, or it's basically inevitable that they're going to get nuclear weapons, because the only way the Israelis can touch their nuclear facilities is either with a ground-based nuclear detonation or this sci-fi microwave technology that the Americans are boasting about. That, of course, we haven't really seen, but they claim that they've had it since 2012. I haven't seen it. You know, I haven't seen any videos of it or anything, but they claim they haven't. We're not going to go there. But just know that it appears as though the Iranians already are destined to have nukes at this point in time. So, yeah, that's where we're at. And when that happens, that's going to completely disrupt the balance of power in the Middle East, and it's going to put the Americans and the Israelis on the losing end. And that's, I guess, not good for us. Being here in the West, but maybe it is good for us, because maybe if we stay out of other people's business, then, you know, things will improve. But hey, that's a debate you can fight about in the comment section while I continue to prep for the apocalypse. Now, I think this is what's going to go down. Okay, this is what I suspect, because they're warming us up for this. But before I talk about that, I want to show you guys something new. I don't do a lot of sponsorships on the channel. All I ask is that you check out CanadianPreparedness.com, where we try to get you the best gear known to man to survive the apocalypse. Check this out. We got new bug out rolls in different colors. Man, I'm doing a terrible job at showing you these colors. Okay, so we got, this is like a, I don't know what you call it, like a desert camo type roll. Okay, and I'm going to show you what exactly this is in a moment. We got the coyote brown style. We have probably over a dozen colors now. We have like a woodland hunting camo color. And we also have, for the ladies, is that sexist? The Muddy Girl pink camo. I don't know how well the colors are coming off. And what you do with this bug out roll, the reason why this thing is so freaking awesome is because not only is it made in Canada, in this city, in fact, so we don't outsource stuff to China, because we know the war with China is coming. But the reason why this thing kicks ass is it's basically your portable closet. Oops, what did I just do? Okay, it's your portable closet in the woods. And it's built really heavy duty. You got cold crack, heat resistant vinyl. You got all your stuff in visual range. It's water resistant, it's not waterproof. You got heavy duty YKK zips. Everything is overbuilt, rugged, built for the apocalypse, and it's also modular. So you can, I don't want to do that again. Jeez. You can actually take the mods off. Okay, so you can take different parts off. There's different mods you can get, so you can organize all of your stuff in the field. People use these for, I just use it when I go camping. You hang it up on a tree, and everything is nice and organized, so you don't lose stuff. You can put anything you want in there. Saws, knives, axes will even fit. You can even fit your survival rifles and stuff like that. You fold them up. It's just a great way to keep everything organized in the field and keep things at arm's reach, optically accessible, and yeah, it's awesome. So go check that out. We're currently having a deal, 15% off, to celebrate the new colors that we have at the shop. Really excited about that. So we've done several videos on that, so go and check it out. But keeping your gear organized in the field, and I assure you, we build this thing to survive World War III. So get one while the getting is good. We don't have that mass industrial capacity like they do over there in China. Now, here's what's going to go down, I do believe. We're still on the Middle East topic, because right now the FBI is really ramping up the threat of some sort of terrorist incident. Sort of battery life. We're doing good. We're doing good. All right. So FBI Director Christopher Wray has issued a warning of a major coordinated terror attack that could happen in a public space, as the threat of a terrorist attack is now at an all-time high. Get a load of this. The FBI have warned that the attack could be on a whole other level, and they are increasingly concerned that the attack could happen to something similar to the Moscow Russian concert hall attack that killed 144 people. As I look back over my career, Christopher Wray said, the FBI director, In law enforcement, I'm hard-pressed to come up with a time when I've seen so many different threats all elevated at the same time, whether it's threats from China, Russia, Iran, the terrorist threats, both foreign and domestic terrorism threats. So they're setting the stage for a flashbulb event. They're probably going to tie it to the Iranians or one of the axis of evil, because remember, the whole goal of that trilateral summit between Stoltenberg, Sunak, and Tusk was to create a framing of every conflict as all conflicts. So it's NATO and Australia and South Korea and Taiwan versus the rest of the world, essentially, and part of the Philippines and a few other countries. That's what's going on. And, you have these mass protests now brewing in the United States. So that's an excellent smoke screen to have shit like this go down. So I would not be surprised. People got to remain vigilant at this point in time, because we could see when he says a whole other level. Now, the thing is, you got to ask, does he have like vague information, or is there specific information that is informing his assessment that risk is at an all-time high, or is it just like a guesstimate? Because if there is specific information, what do they know? And shouldn't they disclose some of that information to the public? If they know that, like they kind of knew how it was going to happen in a concert hall in Moscow, so they claim, we all know, yeah, the guys were heading for the Ukrainian border. The case is still open on that, but many suspect that maybe the Ukrainians had something to do with it. But of course, we deny that. We say there's no evidence. We just have to come to your own conclusions. But you would think they would have more specific information on that, wouldn't you? Now, when he says whole other level, what I think he's talking about is that we could see a similar 9/11 situation where you had multiple things happen across the country at once, like some kind of day of rage. And that is going to inflict such a dangerous impression in people's minds that is going to compel us to mobilize for war against Iran and the rest of the world. Remember, North Korea made that visit to Iran, likely going to be coordinating militarily, providing them with long-range missile capability, and I'm surprised that he didn't mention North Korea. What else do we got going on in the world today? I think that's it for the... Is that it? No, that's not it. That can't be it. Yeah. Joe Biden says that Ukrainian military aid will arrive in hours. It just coincidentally happened to be there waiting in Poland for the bill to get signed. What a coinky-dink. What else do we got going on here? You know, there's a lot of other non-World War III news, but it's all connected. Among those things, where should we go here? Where should we go? Oh, the U.S. is going to convert Pacific oil rigs into military bases as part of an anti-China buildup. I wonder how the Chinese are going to feel about that. Repurposing old oil rigs for military facilities. You know, that is poetically tragic. You know, if you were an environmentalist looking at that, that would be, that's almost an art piece in and of itself. You know, I could see that being, maybe this is the U.S. military's foray into art. Oh boy, the U.S. Navy will convert surplus oil rigs in the Western Pacific into mobile military bases as a part of a U.S. military buildup aimed at China. Okay, so let me get this straight. You're building up a bunch of military bases along China's border, and it's in response to China's military buildup. Now, most people won't even call out the hypocrisy and contradiction of this anymore because it's just so blatant. Like, it's clear that we're the assholes in this relationship. Because if there were Chinese military bases just off the coast of the United States, we would have been in a nuclear radiated hellscape long ago. Okay? So this is where we're at. We only view the world from our perspective. We don't view it from other people's perspective. Now, I will say, this TikTok bullshit, a lot of people are saying, it's because they're trying to suppress Palestinian voices and blah, blah, blah. I don't think that social media, at least TikTok, definitely not TikTok. People ain't getting off TikTok to go and mobilize and protest and actually do something that is truly going to threaten the status quo. They're banning TikTok because China has banned YouTube, X, Facebook, and pretty much every other prominent social media American-run app. They've blocked it with the Great Chinese Firewall. In fact, they have a whole unit in the government, like just Defense Ministry of Cybersecurity or something like that. I can't remember what it's called. But they've blocked all of our apps for a long time. So it only makes sense that if you're worried about subversive tactics from your adversary, which is unfortunately China, and yes, I know we're the asshole, okay, I already trying to be fair and balanced here. Yes, we are provoking the Chinese. But on the flip side of that, why would we allow a Chinese company who has access to all user data, would likely use it for surveillance purposes, and definitely could use it for cultural, ideological, and social coercion and subversion, I should say. Why would we allow that to just continue unfettered? So, of course, they're going to force ByteDance to divest, but make no mistake, this is the beginning of the war with China, okay? This is absolutely the beginning of the war with China, like the real war, because now it's going to ramp up. And I think we're going to see a lot more economic tension of this sort. And it's only a matter of time before it starts making its way into the big box stores of North America, which is why I encourage you, as I do in every video, capitalize on the deals while you can, because you might not be able to get that shit for much longer. Bird flu virus found in U.S. retail milk. Now this is concerning. Oh, I didn't know it was 33 cattle herds. Thanks for reminding me. Illuminated ones. The pathogens have been detected in 33 cattle herds. Now here's the problem. Bird flu kills 50% of humans that it infects. I'm sure it's not quite as much because there's probably some cases that go undetected. Historically, it's been 60%. They say it's dropping somewhat, but still, you know, that's a tall, that's a lot of deaths. That's a high fatality rate compared to something like, you know, COVID, which let's not get into that. But even if it were to drop to, say, 5% fatality rate, and it were to get into the population through this vector, which really, when you think about it, it's not killing cows. In fact, they haven't found one death in cows yet, which is interesting, but they're saying that the pathogen is spreading through the milk. So what better way for it to spread to the entire population than through cows' milk? Now, I know what the tinfoil conspiracy hatters are going to say. They're going to say that this is to control the food supply, for making sure that we don't eat meat, managing our carbon footprint, and to push whatever sort of prophylactic they're going to profiteer off of when the time comes for the virus to run amok in the population. I get all that, but here's my thinking about this. I'm getting some weird vibes with this bird flu stuff. I was talking about it about a year and a half ago when it was spreading in sea lions and other species. It was jumping species, which was very concerning. And at the time, they were just downplaying it like they're doing now. They're saying, okay, well, this bird flu thing that we were warning about years ago was going to cause the end of the world. Now it's really no big deal. Don't worry, but just keep on playing. Go protest, you know, for the Palestinians, stuff like that. Don't worry about this bird flu thing. It's not going to blow up. The same thing happened with C-19. In fact, I remember distinctly, I remember where I was. It was almost a flashbulb memory when who is she? The Canadian Minister of Health or something or the other basically came out and said, yeah, you know, we don't have to worry about it. We can keep the borders open. No big deal. They did a complete 180, also known as a 360 if you're Annalena Baerbock. They did a complete 180. And then they, almost within the span of a few days, all of a sudden, if you didn't wear a mask, you were an asshole. Going from if you didn't need to wear masks at all, and in fact, if you did, you were a bad person. I think this is exactly what we're being set up for here. I think that They're really downplaying this. It's going to become endemic in other species. And then the recipe is going to be there for it to just magically jump into humans one of these days. And because nobody believes the bullshit anymore, people are going to be a little overconfident, and people are unfortunately going to succumb to this virus. Because even if it's just a 5% fatality rate, it's the end of the world. Really, it's the end of the world as we know it. Not the end of the world, but everything changes. Now, if you knew that you were heading into World War III and you needed to get the population on lockdown, or you knew that an economic collapse was pending, this is your ticket out. This is the big ticket, okay? They've already done the trial run. Everybody's already been trained. They already have a generation of children who now, my kids, this is what they know. They know the drill, they know about wearing masks, they know about the pandemic, and they know about the teacher strikes that were caused by the economy that was affected by the pandemic. So that's what my kids know, okay? Their whole childhood now is just chaos with the school system. They're going to more easily acquiesce to the idea of additional real deal martial law-like lockdowns that are going to be what you need to precipitate a major military mobilization, or to potentially just get everything in check for when that is about to go down. Could it have been all a trial run? I'm not saying it was. I'm saying, and I've never been a person who says that it's no big deal. And I've never said anything about the intervention, because it's like, you know, it doesn't change a damn thing. You can run your mouth about that all day and it's not going to change a thing. You just do what you do, and I do what I do, and I keep my vote on that matter private, as I would encourage most people to. I think the big one is coming, and I think that this is being set up for the big one, and I will leave it at that. The Chinese, look at the Chinese buying that gold. Chinese gold trading activity explodes in spite of the fact that they're trying to paper down the price of gold. Look what's going on in China, guys. They are buying gold for like $500 over spot. They know it's coming. Anthony Blinken there is trying to convince them. Now, on the climate front, I got to say, this is Southern Europe. This is a dust storm, yet another orange sky. Just run-of-the-mill orange skies. This is how it is. Okay, I got to say, this is Canada right now. This is the drought situation in Canada. I am telling you right now, if we do not get a deluge of rain in the next couple weeks, we are going to see apocalyptic wildfires on a scale never before seen. Even last year, when we nearly 3x the previous record. It is so bone dry out there right now. It's scary. It's actually scary, because it can rain. It can rain for 2 days. And it seems like after a day, there's nothing. It's gone. It evaporates. The temperatures right now, how do look, we're hitting on everything today. The economy's fucked. The climate's screwed. The bird flu thing, the war thing, no matter, it's coming at us from all directions. And what I'm telling you right now is that this doesn't look like, they make it out like this extreme drought, like that's the only real, that's not. All of this is just bone dry. Okay, even the yellow stuff, which is, what is that? I think that's abnormally dry. So yellow is abnormally dry. Extreme drought is in red, and exceptional drought is the darkest color. And so we're seeing extreme drought in some cases, but most of Canada is drier than normal. Now everybody's saying El Nino. They're saying that cyclical climatic patterns are what's dictating unprecedented climactic events. Let me say that again. Cyclical climactic patterns like El Nino are what's dictating unprecedented climactic events, which are leading to record high prices in cocoa and coffee, and all of these unprecedented incidents happening around the globe. Some geniuses, self-deluding geniuses, are still out there saying, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. It's just a cycle. I hope so. I hope so, because if not, we're going to see some total chaos this year. Total chaos. In and around the Edmonton region here, this is a place where they don't have data. For some reason, it's not that that's the one place where there is no drought. At least I think that's, yeah, drought not analyzed. Or no, maybe there is no drought in just that one place. That's interesting. Anyways, some big population centers like around Prince George, where there's a lot of people, it's going to burn. It's going to burn down this year. You better have an escape plan. And I ain't joking. I wouldn't joke about such a thing because it's close to home, even if it wasn't. U.S. federal deficit adjusted for inflation. Boom! Look at that. We got all kinds of money to throw at the military-industrial complex. This was World War II, in the thick of World War II. We're already, we're back here, but this is just deficit. This is not debt. So we're still like twice worse off as we were in World War II. Oh, Trudeau has a plan. Meta crashed. Let's talk about Trudeau's plan, shall we? He's got a plan to fix everything. Get a load of this. Now, when I first heard him say this, I thought this was satire. I thought there was no way his PR team thought that this was a good idea. But here we go. Okay, let's see what our brave leader has to say.
Talk about public lands, post office buildings, ports, military bases, places the federal government owns. They're places that you might call home in the coming years. You've got a 2-story post office building? Let's put an apartment building on top of it. Or build multiplexes in an underused corner of a military base.
What? He wants to build projects on Canadian military bases.
It's not how governments used to operate, but it's not rocket science either. I'm at CFB Esquimalt on beautiful Vancouver Island, one of the spots we're assessing to see where we might be able to put up more housing. There are thousands of municipal, provincial, and federal lands across the country that we could use to build more.
Canada is the second biggest country on Earth. On Earth. They can't find place to build public housing for people? Oh boy. It's over, man. It's over, and you better prepare. You better be prepping like your life and the life of your progeny depends on it, because this is who's in charge. My friends, gotta go check out CanadianPreparedness.com. Oh yeah, and if you want to get this kick-ass bug-out roll, you don't get all the stuff in it. You gotta put your own stuff in it, okay? If you want to get one of these, use coupon code SURVIVALROLL for 15% off. Take it easy, my friends.